Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Getting Started with C Sharp. I'm Faisal, and in this video we will talk about C Sharp Entity Framework and the code first approach. So let's get started. To do that, I'm going to create a new project. So it will be stored in my GitHub folder. And it will be like, yes, this is the folder, code first. And for simplicity, we will start with a class library, and we will name it as school application dot data access. Why? Because we will code of the data access in here. Okay. So what the code first approach says is we will think the objects according to what we think of OOP concept, and this code first approach entity framework will understand our codes and create the database on behalf of us. We don't need to create the database by ourselves, create new table, create new column, set the data types, set the primary keys, something like those. It's quite interesting. So to check it, first we'll create another project, but before that we should rename the solution. So I'm going to rename it because this single solution will have multiple projects. Okay, save. So this is school application, and this project's name is school application.data access. We will create another project which will contain the models. So school application.model, and we will delete the class 1 as well. Okay, pretty simple. To begin with, we need to install Entity Framework. So right click on the data access project, go to the NuGet package manager, go to the online. You should see the Entity Framework at the top. In the meantime, I'm going to open my SQL server. And I'm going to open the SQL Express. In the comments, in the description section, you can find how can you install the SQL Server video. I have already made one of those. So just deleting the existing one. Okay, fine. So you can see we have only three databases in our SQL Express database software. So back to the C Sharp project, this is the Entity Framework, install it. So we will create a student which will have an ID, name, address, phone number. Our guessing is the Entity Framework will create a database for us over here and create the table student for us inside of the database, and that table will have the same columns we will define here as model. So let's create the model first. Add class student. Let's make it as a public. The entity framework code first approach has some convention. The first convention is, if you make some primary key, you need to do it like this. You need to name it the class name and suffix with the ID part. Okay, student ID should be the primary key inside of that table. Also, I'm going to show you some productivity tips. If you write prop, you can see there is a shortcut over here, prop, press enter, and then just type the string, enter, type the name, enter, again string, and the last one string 4. Good enough. So in the data access project, we will add a new class which will be responsible for interacting with the database from our application. So let's name it as school data context. But it's a plain old class. How can it know? So we need to inherit it from system data entities db context class. It is a child of this class. So this school data context will be responsible for creating and managing the database on behalf of our application. So next, we need to create tables. But how? Like this way. dbset. Okay, you cannot find it because you need to add the reference. You can just add over here, just click it, or if you can't find the ReSharper suggestions, you can go to the data access project, right click on the reference, click the solution, click the projects, and you can see the model class, model project over here. Click the library, press OK. So you can see the library is added, school application.model. Now we can import it. So students, and it is the default property. So quite simple. Okay, so now we need a client application to call this data context. So let's right click, add a new project which may be a console application. So let's name it as school application.console client. We'll change the folder name later. So we are in the client project right now. We'll call the school data context, get the students, and do whatever we like. In this case, we will get all of the students from the database, but we will not find any. Let's do it. Dot, sorry, just we copy the class name, and now I will use the resharper solution. It's edit db. What is it saying? It's saying, okay, I need to add the entity framework as well. There are a couple of ways you can add the entity framework into your client project. The easiest way is right click on the solution, manage entity NuGet packages, go to the install packages and select the console client for adding the library of entity framework into the console client. Now it's not complaining. So if you press db dot, we can see the students. We'll loop through. It's again complaining because the model project is not added. Start name, and okay, and before finishing we need to tell the customer or the user that it's done. So let's test it. Let's see how it goes. Interesting is because your client is not set as a startup project. So right click, startup project, and run again. Okay, so we don't find any student from the database, but where is the database? Let's go back to the SQL server, right click the databases, do the refresh. Wow, you can see the database already created for us. You should see the table and you should see the columns we have defined, and you don't see any data into the database because we haven't inserted any. So we will add some data now. Let's start with Mr. Fox. One, two, three, four, and please check we didn't add any primary key over here. It is auto incremented. How can we check that? Let's go to the design view. Here's the student ID. It's selected. Now you can see here is the name, identity spec, and it's yes. So if the column's identity spec is set to yes, that means it is auto incremented. So we have inserted one student. Let's run this again. And wow, Mr. Fox is showed. So thus you can easily create a database from scratch according to your domain. I need to show you another thing, that is, if you don't need or don't want to name your database in like this way, you can easily change that. I'm going to show you. Just do a constructor overload, CTOR, and write your desired name over here. In our case, school DB. Just for the sake of simplicity, this be a good safe position. Delete the database. Okay, run again. Is done because no database at the first time. Wow, it's school DB is created, and the same spec already we did. Let's add some students. Doing it Mr. Crow right now. Okay, so data inserted. Let's run the project again, and Mr. Crow is shown. So thanks for watching. In the next video we will tweak and twist and change some of our requirements to make the real application. Thanks for watching. Allah Hafiz.